Bob telegraphed the governor to claim their reward. He thought he'd be welcomed as a hero.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the most interesting stories behind historical acts of alleged cowardice.
You're a disgrace.
Give his head a good kicking, make it feel better.
All in good time.
Number 10. William Hull. What exactly constitutes an act of cowardice? It's often a malleable thing that can shift depending upon one's point of view. The motives behind William Hull's surrender to General Isaac Brock during the War of 1812 could be perceived as honorable.
Hull begged for time. He sent a note to Brock, asking for a 3-day ceasefire.
The American general was under the assumption that the combined British and Native American forces would ultimately rout his men. Hull's surrender was intended, in Hull's own words, designed to spare his battalion the horrors of a massacre. American officials didn't see it that way, however, and Hull was court-martialed for cowardice in 1814. His sentence of death was ultimately commuted by President James Madison, thanks largely in part to Hull's service record during the Revolutionary War.
William Hull did not have Lydia Bacon's courage. The American general disintegrated.
Number 9. Horatio Gates. What a difference a couple of years makes. The military career of Horatio Gates was notable for both victory and defeat. The former was at the Battle of Saratoga during the Revolutionary War. However, Gates's legacy is complicated by an embarrassing showing at the Battle of Camden in 1780. The Major General's forces lost to Britain's Lord Cornwallis, despite the Americans having the upper hand in terms of numbers. Gates's leadership was ultimately lacking, and he allowed 1,000 of his men to be captured by the British. His chaotic organizational skills couldn't even be relied upon in retreat, with Gates himself essentially abandoning the field on horseback. Number 8. James H. Ledlie. The siege of Petersburg lasted over 10 months during the American Civil War and was mired by embarrassing military gaffes such as this one at the Battle of the Crater. The Union forces should have made the most out of the titular crater blown into Confederate forces by their mines. Instead, the end results were mass confusion and mass casualties. Meanwhile, General James H. Ledlie lurked safely behind a bunker, reportedly drinking alcohol while his men perished. An inquiry into Ledlie's conduct was committed shortly thereafter, effectively ending his military career. Number 7. Ted Kennedy.
I was overcome, I'm frank to say, by a jumble of emotions: grief, fear, doubt, exhaustion, panic, confusion, and shock.
The presidential hopes of then-Senator Ted Kennedy were effectively squashed after the Chappaquiddick incident back in 1969. Kennedy's car overturned in a body of water after he left a party on Martha's Vineyard. A young woman in the car, Mary Jo Kopechne, became trapped within the submerged vehicle and perished at the scene.
What the hell happened, Teddy?
You guys need to get me back to Wicked Town.
Kennedy, for his part, claimed that he had attempted to rescue Kopechne, both at the time of the accident and later on with his cousin and an associate. However, Kennedy neglected to inform the police about the accident until the next day. Accusations of impropriety, drunk driving, and cowardice followed Kennedy until his death in 2009.
I will answer the questions, and if you have questions right now, you ask them to me, because I'll answer them.
There was a lot of finger-pointing at the staff about how the senator had been allowed to walk into what they thought was a trap.
Number 6. Gideon Johnson Pillow. It always pays to possess friends in high places. Gideon Johnson Pillow helped James K. Polk win the presidential nomination at the Democratic National Convention in 1844. Polk wound up being instrumental in bailing out Pillow during his multiple military missteps. This included downgrading a potential court-martial for insubordination in 1848. Later, Pillow joined the Confederates in the Civil War, tarnishing his reputation further at the Battle of Fort Donelson in 1862. The command post got hot potatoed from Pillow to Brigadier General Simon Buckner. The latter surrendered his Confederate forces to Ulysses S. Grant, while Pillow and the man who had passed command on to him, John B. Floyd, turned tail and ran away. Number 5. Lloyd Fredendall. Army leadership can be relieved of their command posts for a number of reasons. Lloyd Fredendall was a U.S. Lieutenant General during World War II who was replaced by Major George S. Patton after the infamous Battle of Kasserine Pass.
Up against Rommel, what we need is the best tank man we've got. Somebody tough enough to pull this outfit together.
Patton?
Possibly.
Those under Fredendall's command were said to have referred to his leadership style as cowardly, and the lieutenant's demeanor as boastful, yet without the desire to back up his words with actions. The final nail in the coffin for Lloyd Fredendall as a leader came as a result of Speedy Valley, a bunker Fredendall had built during Kasserine Pass. The general essentially hid out there as his Allied forces suffered casualties, yet blamed the failure of this operation upon everybody but himself. Number 4. Lavrentiy Beria. Many of us wonder how we might react if we ever had to stare down the barrel of a gun. Lavrentiy Beria was a serial sexual predator and a sycophantic member of Joseph Stalin's secret police. Beria's reputation as a shrewd politician was evidenced by the wealth of blackmail material the Internal Affairs Minister compiled against both colleagues and enemies.
Some women will do anything to get their husbands released.
Yeah, and she did everything. I thank the union for bringing me so many devoted wives who like sewing machines.
Yet, when justice came calling for Lavrentiy Beria in 1953, his reaction was anything but brave or defiant. The man reportedly fell to his knees, groveling and begging for his life to be spared. This was not to be, however, and Lavrentiy Beria was shot at point-blank range after a short trial without the benefit of counsel or appeal.
Beria has been reprimanded.
It's unforgivable, but...
Oh, so much like a fairy tale.
Number 3. Robert Ford.
Have you done this?
I swear to God I didn't.
This next entry has remained within the public consciousness thanks to films such as 2007's The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. Ford actually rode alongside James and his brother as a member of the James Younger gang, but he would eventually become infamous for shooting Jesse James in the back of the head. Robert Ford and his brother Charlie decided to take Missouri Governor Thomas T. Crittenden up on his bounty for James's death.
There's a $10,000 price on his head offered by Governor Crittenden of Missouri, and Bob Ford wants to cash in.
The Fords would later reenact their cowardly attack from behind in various saloon shows. Yet today, Robert Ford's legacy remains that of a coward rather than an outlaw. Number 2. Eddie Slovic.
Another bolo, Slovic.
Well, I'm really
Keep the peace downrange, son.
Yes, sir.
Sergeant.
Yes, Sergeant.
The United States military hasn't executed a soldier for desertion since the death of Eddie Slovic back in 1945. This World War II-era soldier fully admitted to his desertion, as well as the fear of frontline combat that initiated his request to be stationed in a rear guard position. The soldier also claimed that his execution was influenced in part to his past history as a petty criminal prior to his military service. Slovic wasn't the only one of his kind to be given a death sentence during this time, with many others having their sentences commuted. Slovic, however, had no such luck. Slovic and his final remains were interred in an area housing soldiers that had been executed for wartime murders and sexual assaults.
The second volley won't be necessary, Major. Pilot Slovic is dead.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into Settings and switch on your notifications. Number 1. Francesco Schettino.
Captain Schettino is accused of causing this shipwreck and then abandoning it, as well as multiple manslaughter. Hopefully this trial will reveal exactly why such a sophisticated ship hit the jagged rocks.
We've seen a lot of historical examples of cowardice thus far in this list, but the case of Francesco Schettino is a comparatively recent story that made headlines back in 2012. Schettino was the captain of the Costa Concordia cruise ship during its fatal capsizing in January of that year. The naval disaster resulted in 33 deaths, after the Costa Concordia accidentally struck an underwater rock.
But he was indicating the one that was submerged, because he was indicating the one on the right side. And that's why I was asking, sorry, it's dark, I cannot see. Which ladder you mean?
Schettino, for his part, abandoned his ship prior to the evacuation of everybody on board. He received scathing nicknames, such as Captain Coward and Chicken of the Seas. Yet the Costa Concordia disaster was truly no laughing matter. Instead, Francesco Schettino was sentenced to 16 years in prison for his actions.
And there is a difference between crime and accident. In this case, it's been treated like a crime. I don't understand why.
What, to you, defines a coward? How do you think you'd react in a real life-or-death situation? Sound off in the comments below.
Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.